Brightside was a magical record to work on for a lot of reasons. I've been working with Wes and Jaron, Simon Felice for, since I guess Cleopatra in different roles. First I was a keyboard player, later I was an engineer. This was the first record that I got brought in as a producer as well. So I've had time to sort of evolve with the band and sort of become part of what they do in the studio. So I knew them really well. I also knew that this was a departure from the other records that they did, and that was really exciting. They had started playing larger and larger venues, and I think that was sort of modifying the music that Wes and Jer were writing. They wanted to write music that was really reactive to the kind of spaces. I think playing Madison Square Garden really opened up, oh my gosh, some songs work really well, some songs don't work really well. And that became sort of credo for, let's make a record that it's going to work in a small way, if you're walking in earbuds on the street, or in a huge way if you're, at a huge concert arena or something like that. The other thing that made it really special is that the studio that I own, Sun Mountain Studio, which is actually, on my premises in Boyceville, New York, during the pandemic, I just started using it more and more. I started using commercial studios less and less, and it's just chock full of instruments. It's chock full of special gear and vintage stuff, and so it was like having your best friends and the best crew in the universe and the best musicians coming in with the coolest gear, and where everything is, and how everything operates. And I think for that reason, it's almost like you go well, this is paradise. This is how every record should be made. And it's just so inspirational because your communication is so quick, and because the sort of line of how to work together is so well developed. I think the thing that's probably the most striking about the Brightside record is actually the title track, Brightside. The thing that made Brightside interesting to me is that with them, and actually most artists, it usually takes us a while to find our sea legs on any song. So there might be arrangements that existed previously with demos or work tapes or whatever. With Brightside, there was just some voice memos, and there was this idea of let's create an aura around it. And as soon as Wes started playing the guitar riff, he picked up a guitar. It sounded almost like a teenager playing it. It was exciting. And when Jer was tuning his drums up in the drum room, because the way that the studio works is 2 floors, and there's a room with 16-foot vaulted ceilings where the drums were, he was literally practicing drums, and I heard the drum loop that became Brightside, and he was playing it in such a loose, kind of cool way. And I said to Renee, let's Renee Hikari, my assistant, let's record this. We recorded it, and that became the loop that we recorded Brightside guitar and vocals to. And later on, we punched in some drum fills and stuff like that. But he played it in such a cool way. The drums were so cool because it sounded like, oh, I'm discovering drums. And the guitar was so cool because it sounded like, oh, I'm discovering guitar. And we recorded that song so fast. It was a 1-day production. And I think that rarely happens with us, with the Lumineers and us, and actually just rarely happens. It's like everything just fell into place. Every time you heard something, you were so excited by what you heard that it kind of led you down the path. It's like this, and this, and then all of a sudden you realize it's 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and you're like, whoa, we have a song. That's an incredible memory, and you can't replace that. I mean, that's an interesting question. My favorite Brightside track, I like all of them at different times for different reasons, but I would say the one that I'm probably most proud of is Where We Are. I think it's a super interesting song, musically speaking. It uses multiple pianos, which I love, like a felted broken piano we call Firewood, and uses a Steinway B that I have, and it just sort of combines Mellotron choir. I dug out this weird-ass sample that I love. It just combines all this atmosphere, and the feeling of the song for me is like post-COVID, like where we are. We're going to be okay. And I felt like that was so meaningful at the time because we were all still reeling from the past few years and all our various isolations and all that sort of PTSD or trauma that came with that. The song also, has these background vocals that we ended up running through the Roland Space Echo. And they have this warbly analog tape, like almost like things from a memory or a dream. And I just love how surreal the track is. It's so real and so human and so raw on one level. And then on another level, it's like cinematically surreal. It feels like it could be like some art film or something. And that's really something that I'm proud of. I mean, honestly, I'm honored that they allow me in the studio. I mean, I'm honored to be part of the record. I'm honored to play on it. I'm honored to work with the team. I mean, I'm so proud of everybody on this team, and I love everybody individually and also collectively. But ultimately, when you find a group of people that you're super creative with and that you can create amazing work with, it's probably one of the best feelings in the world. You can't replace that with anything. We all dream of it, but then when it actually happens, you're like, oh, this is so easy and it's so fun. And there's always a new like sort of mountain to climb or some new treasure to discover. And honestly, like when you finish a record like Brightside, all you want to do is make another record with the same people. It's weird. You could, I've talked about this with other friends in production. You can go through post-record depression because you're a family and you're creating all this amazing stuff, and then when it stops, you're like, oh man, I'm back to regular life, and I've got to, buy coffee, and I've got to, do my laundry and stuff, and it's boring. It's much more fun to, plug in a Mellotron or, do crazy stuff and have everyone go like, that's sick, that's awesome, and high five each other because, you're a team.